He's 82 years old, worth more than $500 million, and for 6 decades he's been the most untamable figure in the history of rock and roll. But just when you thought you knew everything about Mick Jagger, the relationships, the scandals, the empire, a quiet interview with a French magazine cracked something open that the world had been speculating about for years. What Jagger's partner finally confirmed sent shockwaves through the tabloids. And it's only the beginning of the story. In April 2025, Melanie Hamrick, Jagger's partner of over a decade, sat down with Paris Match and casually dropped a bombshell. She and Mick Jagger were engaged. Had been for years, in fact. 2 or 3 years, she said, like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. No announcement, no press release, no ring reveal on Instagram. Just a quiet confirmation that the man who once defined rock and roll excess had been carrying an engagement for years without saying a word. The internet exploded. But here's the thing, the clues had been there the whole time. Back in 2023, Hamrick had stepped out wearing a large diamond ring on that finger. When reporters pushed her on it, she gave one of the most delightfully cryptic answers in recent celebrity history. Did Mick give me the ring? Yes. Is it for that finger? Yes. But in my mind, it's a promise ring. We'll be immature and call it a promise ring. People laughed it off. Turns out, she wasn't being coy. She was being completely literal. The rock legend had already proposed. She just wasn't ready to call it what it was. To understand why this engagement is such a big deal, you have to understand who Melanie Hamrick is and how extraordinary it is that she, of all people, became the woman to slow Mick Jagger down. She's 37, he's 82. That's a 44-year age gap that the press has chewed on endlessly. Hamrick herself has had enough of the commentary. I don't think about it, she told The Times in 2024. If you think about others' opinions, no matter where you are in life, you're going to have a problem. I put the blinders on. Am I happy? Yes. Are the people in my life happy? Yes. Am I hurting anyone? No. They can mind their own business. Before Jagger, she was a principal dancer with the American Ballet Theater in New York City, one of the most prestigious ballet companies in the world. She spent 16 years with the company before retiring in 2019. Since then, she's reinvented herself as a choreographer, and more recently, as a published novelist. Her debut novel, First Position, is an erotic thriller set in the world of ballet. Turns out, the woman behind one of rock's most famous romances has a life entirely her own. They first crossed paths in Japan. It was early 2014. The Rolling Stones were on tour in Tokyo, and the American Ballet Theater happened to be performing in the same city. The ballerinas were given backstage passes. Hamrick recalled the moment she met him. A fist bump, nothing more. She wasn't even that impressed. Ballet dancers, she later explained, don't exactly go weak at the knees over rock stars. Ballet dancers meet some of the biggest stars and act like, who are you? Because to us, ballet dancers are the gods. The audacity, the confidence. Whether Jagger found that refreshing, we can only guess. But there was a complication. At the time, Jagger was not single. In the same month, Hamrick met Jagger backstage. One of the most heartbreaking events of his personal life unfolded. In March 2014, his longtime partner and girlfriend, fashion designer Loren Scott, passed away at the age of 49. Jagger was in Australia on tour when the news reached him. He released a statement saying he was completely shocked and devastated, and that he was struggling to understand how my lover and best friend could end her life in this tragic way. The tour was suspended. Jagger was seen publicly in a state of grief that his fans had never witnessed before. By all accounts, Loren Scott had been one of the most significant relationships of his life, a 13-year partnership with a brilliant, fiercely independent woman who had built her own name in the fashion world. But life kept moving, and by the summer of that same year, Jagger and Hamrick had begun seeing each other. A mutual acquaintance had passed along her number. Jagger reached out. They met again in Zurich. The rest, as they say, is history. The timing has never been far from public conversation. Hamrick addressed it directly. She said they first met before Loren Scott's death, that there was nothing between them at the time, and that their actual relationship only began months later. Whether that fully satisfies the more skeptical corners of the internet is another matter. People have opinions. They always will, so they're engaged. But don't clear your calendar for the ceremony just yet. When Hamrick confirmed the engagement to Paris Match, she was refreshingly honest about where things stood. Maybe one day we'll marry, maybe not, she said. We are so happy in our current life that I would be too afraid to change anything. It's the kind of answer that says everything and nothing at the same time. Two people, perfectly content, in no rush to put a label on something that already works. They share a son, Devereaux, born in December 2016, who turned 8 in 2024. He's Jagger's 8th child. Yes, 8th. And if you needed a reminder of just how sprawling the Jagger family tree is, Devereaux has half-siblings who are older than his mother. Hamrick and Jagger live semi-separately by design. She has spoken about maintaining their own spaces as a key part of why the relationship functions so well. "We are in such similar careers," she told People. "To keep it separate is better. You're working with the person all day, and then you're with them at night. It's like too much of each other." It's a setup that flies in the face of every conventional romantic script. But then again, Mick Jagger has never been one for conventional scripts. Just when the engagement story was dominating the headlines, another Jagger story hit, one with a very different energy. In December 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice released thousands of files related to Jeffrey Epstein as part of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed into law the previous month. Among the images uploaded without context were photographs showing Mick Jagger seated at a dinner table with Epstein, Bill Clinton, and Ghislaine Maxwell. A separate image showed Jagger posing with Clinton and an unidentified woman whose face had been redacted. Another photograph had him seated next to Maxwell alone. The photos had no dates, no locations, no context. The DOJ released them as part of a broader document dump, and the files themselves contained Rolling Stones branding on what appeared to be a CD, suggesting the materials may have simply come from a concert setting. Multiple outlets covering the story were careful to note something crucial. The presence of a celebrity in these files does not imply wrongdoing of any kind. The photographs seized from Epstein's properties included images of dozens of famous faces, musicians, politicians, entertainers, many of whom had simply crossed paths with the convicted financier at social events over the years. No accusations were made against Jagger. No investigation was announced. His name appeared in a contact book that had already been public for years. But you know how the internet works. The photographs circulated instantly, the context was stripped out just as quickly, and the speculation moved at a pace that no legal disclaimer could keep up with. For Jagger, who has spent 60-plus years navigating tabloid culture, it was just another week. While all of this was playing out, Jagger's own words from a landmark Wall Street Journal interview were resurfacing and generating fresh debate. The interview, from 2023, showed a rare glimpse of Jagger reflecting on wealth, mortality, and legacy in a way that was uncharacteristically candid. He has a fortune estimated between $500 million and $600 million, depending on who you ask. The Rolling Stones remain one of the highest-grossing touring acts of all time. In 2018 alone, 14 shows netted the band $117 million. Add 6 decades of royalties, real estate holdings across multiple continents, and a film production company, and you begin to understand the scale. When the WSJ asked him whether he planned to sell the band's post-1971 catalog, at a time when nearly every major artist from his generation was cashing in, Jagger said no. And then he went further. What would happen to that money? The children don't need $500 million to live well. Come on. He suggested the money might instead go toward doing some good in the world. 8 kids, 5 different women. Children who range from models and jewelry designers to Netflix producers and journalists. Some of the most famous last names in entertainment carry Jagger blood. And yet their father has openly signaled that the bulk of that empire won't simply be handed down. It's a philosophy that some of the world's richest people, from Bill Gates to Warren Buffett, have quietly aligned themselves with for years. But hearing it from Mick Jagger, one of the architects of rock and roll excess, hits differently. He's also ruled out publishing an autobiography, a decision that fans have met with equal parts understanding and frustration. "There were a lot of disputes," he said in the WSJ piece, nodding vaguely at the chaos of decades past. For Jagger, looking backward in print holds little appeal. What excites him is the idea that the Rolling Stones might not end when he does. "You can have a posthumous business now, can't you?" he said. "You can have a posthumous tour." The ABBA Voyage concerts, holographic, immersive, indefinitely running, clearly made an impression on him. There are rumors, as there always are with Jagger, of what's coming next. Reports have surfaced suggesting he's been back in the studio, working on material described as a return to roots, with whispers of a worldwide tour potentially lining up for late 2025 or beyond. His representatives have not confirmed anything. With Jagger, that silence has historically meant one of two things. Either nothing is happening or everything is. The Rolling Stones released Hackney Diamonds in 2023, their first album of entirely new material in nearly 2 decades. The record, made in the shadow of drummer Charlie Watts' death in 2021, debuted with critical acclaim and featured guest appearances from Lady Gaga and Elton John. It reminded a generation that had started to treat the Stones as a museum piece that they remained, stubbornly and defiantly, a living band. What does the future look like for a man who has buried bandmates, survived a heart valve surgery that sidelined him in 2019, watched the world change beyond recognition, and still shows up to perform like he's the hungriest act on the bill? It looks, somehow, like more of the same. The engagement confirmed, the wedding uncertain, the empire intact, the photographs circulating, the next chapter unwritten. There's something almost mythological about Mick Jagger at this stage. He doesn't just exist in music history. He keeps generating it, whether he's confirming a secret engagement, turning up in government documents, or casually announcing that his kids might not inherit a dime. For 6 decades, people have been waiting for Mick Jagger to slow down, settle down, or quietly fade. He keeps refusing. The rumors get confirmed. New ones immediately take their place, and the Rolling Stone, as ever, gathers no moss.